Bismillah. Okay, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sisters. Thank you for joining me today. Let's begin, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Thank you for joining me today. And the topic that I wanted to share with you and discuss is about some real struggles that we have as mothers. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us shepherds of our flock. And I don't think we spend much of our time feeling like we are the shepherds of our flock. In fact, I don't think we often even feel like a shepherd ourselves. I know sometimes I used to feel so overwhelmed in my parenting that I just wanted my mum or my aunt to come over and take it from me, for a while, because it was just so overwhelming that I wanted to be looked after. I wanted to be cared for. I wanted someone to take the lead. That even taking the lead, I often didn't feel I could, like, to lead my children. So I know this is a very real issue, and I speak to so many mothers who feel the same. They're trying their best to raise their children as happy, pious, and productive Muslims. They had this vision, but in the reality, it doesn't align with the vision where we are able to lead and we feel confident to lead and we feel like the shepherd of our flock. And this is also something that's probably really apparent now in Ramadan, when you are all, wanting to instill a certain way for your children to, to kind of get rid of their bad habits and lead them towards spirituality and connecting with Allah and what's important, and maybe wanting to teach them a bit more about Islam. And you may be finding resistance, and so, finding that I want to teach my children, but they don't want to listen. I want to lead them, but they don't want to follow, is a very real problem that so many of us have. And so this is something that's very, very common that I hear amongst mothers, and the mothers that I'm working with. They are so successful, mashallah, in their professional life. They're working, they're successful in the way that they're running their home and organized, or they're successful in their jobs, and they're even able to lead the community, but they struggle to lead their children. And so I don't know if this is you, but if it is, I'm sure it's resonating. Now, I want to talk to you about the 3 most common reasons that we struggle. And from there, I want to give you a solution, a very simple solution to end the struggle. So it may go slightly over the half an hour, but I pray you're able to stay with me, inshallah, to the end, because I'll share the solution for you. But before we do that, I want you to understand where your struggles are coming from. So the first one is when we compare ourselves to others, and we're thinking that we're not doing as good a job as good a job as someone else is doing. Now, that might be your sister-in-law, that might be your friend or your sister, or even your mother. In a previous session, we were talking about the standard that we have seen our mothers uphold in our homes for iftar, and trying to, and we put that as the standard that we're unable to accomplish. So we see other sisters, we see other people, and in our minds we're wondering, how are they managing to do it all? Like, what is it that they're doing that enables them to do it all? Their children seem to be listening to them. Their children seem to be, following the deen. Their home is organized, and yet they're baking cookies for the, for scouts, and they're doing all of it, right? How are they doing it? And in that, what we're actually doing often is we're creating in our mind an image that isn't really real. We have no idea how they're doing it. We have no idea if they're doing it all. In fact, it might look like it, but what do we know what happens? You know, one of the things I've seen as a coach is no matter how perfect someone's home appears to be, it actually never is. Because why? None of us will achieve perfection. But what our minds does, what we do in our mind is we fill in the gaps. Like we take the bits we see and then we fill in the gaps and imagine what the whole of that person's life is like and how perfect it is and how perfect they are. And that is very overwhelming. And if you're doing that, what you might find happening in your life is you start procrastinating. You start struggling with lack of motivation. Because why? There's a standard to be reached that is perfection. And deep down, you know you can't reach it. Because who can? Right? And that's the struggle we have. It's like we have this really high standard that we've imagined because we don't know. Yes, that person may seem to be thriving, but we don't know what their real life is like, whether they're, I don't know, and not to judge, but, you know, whether they're, you know, the thing that's giving is their connection with Allah, or is the thing that's giving is their body and they're running their bodies to the ground, or is the thing that's giving is their children and they're cooking lots of meals, but their children, you know, they're unable to give their children the time that they want to. Who knows what's giving? We don't know, but we make it up, and what we make up is this imaginary perfect life that they have that we know deep down we can't reach. And because we know we can't reach that, actually we're already failing before we've started. So you start procrastinating about your cooking or your housework or your organizing of the organization of your home, and you start to really feel a lack of motivation because you're trying to do something that you know is unachievable. Where does that come from? Thinking that you need to be perfect. Like there's something that is lacking in you and you need to be somewhere else. Right? And I'm sure if this, you know, if you struggle with this, then this is resonating for you that, yeah, that's what it feels like. Where's it coming from? The belief, the idea that I don't have enough, I don't have what it takes here, I don't have what I need, and therefore I'm failing. What I need to be is where, you know, that sister is and what that sister is doing or what my mum and my family are doing, but I don't have that, and therefore I can't reach that. And that's why we put off then. That's where the procrastination comes in. We put off doing things because we're doing them from a place of, I'm a failure, still not going to be good enough. It's not enough. Does this resonate, sisters? You see, perfection only lies with Allah. That's why we're never going to be able to reach the standard. But know that the standard that you've made up is what is holding you back. And by having this huge standard, we actually cause our own failure because then we're not motivated to fail. We're not motivated to do what we need to do because for us it's all failure. We're always going to fail. And in that, then we're not, you know, we create a cycle for ourselves where I'm unable to do it. You see, I am a failure. And we start proving to ourselves that we're a failure. But who said you were a failure in the first place? Where did we get the standard from? So if this is you, I hope that this is helping you understand what is at the root of comparing others and how that's really impacting your life and that's causing you to struggle. The second thing that we struggle with is feeling like, you know, in our leadership of our children, second most biggest area is when we feel outnumbered and overpowered by children. Now, if you've got more than one, you know what I mean. It takes just one child to start defying you. You ask them to do something and they don't. And then the second child to join them. And if you've got three, it's even worse, right? The third child, and suddenly they're not listening, right? It took one person to start defying and they're ignoring you. In fact, the more you're getting flustered, the more they're probably starting to maybe ridicule you slightly or laugh under their, under their breath. And you're feeling completely ganged up on, right? Now that makes you just want to give up. If you've been in that situation, you just want to give up. You were there trying to raise them as happy, pious, and productive Muslims, and they're just laughing at you. Now, here's what's going on there for us. You see, the reality is that your children, this them having this power over you or overpowering you, that's an imaginary power too. Just like the imaginary standard of perfection, where your children having a power is imaginary as well. And I'll tell you why. They're just children. You're the adult. In fact, they're completely dependent on you. They're unable to go and lead their lives. They're unable to go and probably cook for themselves, or if they're older, they're able to do that, but they can't go and buy the shopping and fend for themselves. They are absolutely dependent upon you. You are the adult, they are the child. So the reality is they can't lead. They have nothing to lead yet. You're still their leader. But why do they feel like they can lead you? That comes from them mirroring what we are really thinking about ourselves. You see, children will mirror us. So if deep down, we have a fear that we cannot cope with our children, and I used to have this a lot. I used to have this fear that I can't really cope with them. I can't really manage them. Then from that place, they feel that energy of you. They feel that, disempowerment, that resignation from you, that I can't do this, I can't cope. And when they feel that you can't cope, they take the lead, as is natural, right? They take the lead, and you're already thinking you can't cope. So as they take the lead, you resign to that. And that perpetuates another cycle where actually we do feel overpowered by them, and they do take charge. But it isn't the reality. The reality is Allah made you the shepherd of their flock. And when you are able to see that you can lead them and you're no longer feeling like you can't cope, they will fall in line. They will fall under your leadership. Now, how do we get that leadership? How do we feel like we can take that position? I'll share that with you in a moment. But what I want to share with you is the struggle we have. Often we try and take leadership, but we do it with force, fear, and threat. Now, that works short term, but it doesn't work really, because they're just doing it so that you won't punish them, take away what they want, but they're not really thinking about their behavior, and they're not really respecting you as the leader. So there's almost like a follow, but with defiance. And that's not really the following you want. What you want to do is to lead with compassion and wisdom. And it might seem like, oh yeah, that's hard to do, but I will show you how to get there, inshallah, in just a few minutes. But again, if you've ever felt overpowered by your children, I want you to ask yourself the question, do you actually think that it's hard to cope with them? Do you actually have that belief? And is it that they're picking up on? You're feeling that you can't cope. It's really important to ask yourself that question. Moving on to the third type of common struggles we have with leading our children is that when we ourselves feel like a failure, right? When we are feeling like a failure ourselves, like we're not good enough, then actually, again, somehow we cause our own failing. And let me explain to you how. You see, you're not really a failure. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran refers to two types of failure. There's only two types of failure, right? There's failure where you take shaitan as your companion in the dunya. And I'm sure none of you are there because you're all fasting and you're all here. Alhamdulillah. And anyone who's not here, I'm sure they're not doing that either. But if you take shaitan as your companion in the dunya, as the one who you will take, you will follow, then that is failure of the dunya. The other type of failure is failure of the akhirah, where you're only focusing on the dunya and you're not preparing anything forward for the akhirah. You're not trying to, send anything forward for yourself, and you're not thinking about it, and you're just dunya focused. And those are the only two types of failure. So whatever you and I feel like we're failing, that's not real failure, right? Not by Allah's standard, because there's just things won't go your way, or you might not achieve what you wanted to achieve. But there's an opportunity in that for you, for growth, for reflection. But it doesn't mean you're a failure. But what we do as mums is we beat ourselves up. We have this huge stick, and every day we beat ourselves up. And I remember a time when I did this, and how ridiculous it was just came to my mind in that moment. Like, I was thinking, oh wow, actually that's pretty ridiculous. Because I remember thinking, going to bed one day as usual, thinking about all the things I did wrong that day, and one of the things that came to my mind as to why I'm such a rubbish mum, please don't laugh at me, but it was because I'd sent my child to school with odd socks. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you're such a rubbish mum. How could you even send your child with odd socks? Like, we were running late. I didn't have time to go up and get it. And I was like, forget it. Let's just put it on. Let's go. And then that evening, I beat myself up and defined myself as a rubbish mum because I sent my child to school with odd socks. Or I think about what I didn't do the whole day. And we never actually think about what we did that went well. That moment, that interaction, that connection, that hug, that one moment when, you felt that you were doing it right. You're not thinking about anything that went well when you're beating yourself up. You're very selective in that moment, and you're thinking about everything that went wrong. Now, if you do that, you know what I mean. And if you cast back to those moments that you're beating yourself up, actually, the truth is, you're not being objective with yourself. You're not being very fair. In a court of law, you'd be a rubbish judge because you would be beating yourself up for all the negatives without focusing on any of what you're doing well. So how can you define yourself as a failure? We are so unfair to ourselves. We are so harsh on ourselves. We create things that aren't there, and then we feel like we can't lead our family and our children. Now, I know that each and every one of you are capable of leading your children, right? Like, even if you don't believe me, and even if you don't feel it, for sure. And I'll give you two examples from the Quran. If we get to Surah Baqarah, when Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah does not place a charge on a soul more than it can bear. So Allah would not give you more than you can bear. So actually, you can lead your children. You can cope with them and their struggles. You can cope with their situation. He wouldn't give you more than you can bear. So even though you might think it, is that true that you can't bear it? Because Allah's promises are always true to us. Right? Allah keeps all of his promises. He will not give you more than you can bear. So where's that coming from, that I can't bear it? Okay, we'll come to that. The second thing that I want you to be aware of, a second proof that actually you are able to lead your family, that you are able to be the shepherd of your flock, is again in Surah Baqarah, ayah 30, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the angels, and he says to them, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. And when your Lord said to the angels, indeed, I will make upon the earth a Khalifa. What is that? That Khalifa is someone who will rule the earth, benefit the earth, take everything that the earth has to offer. Allah chose you and I, insan, for the dunya, to benefit from it, to rule it, to take what it has to offer. You were created, my sisters, to have the upper hand in the dunya. Yes, you were created for Jannah, but part of that is the journey that we take in the dunya. The dunya is a place for you where you can be secure, you can be established, and you can flourish. Now that might be a far cry to how it feels right now, but this is who you are, this is who Allah created in you. He created you to be a Khalifa. Now, we may not feel like that, and there's going to be a difference between what you read in the Quran, because I'm sure you've come across that many times, and what you feel. Like, I don't feel like a leader. I don't even feel like I can cope. Why is that? Because of the waswas of shaitan. Sisters, what was it that Adam alayhi salam, the story that Allah is telling the angel, in these few ayahs. What is the story? It's about when Adam alayhi salam was tricked by shaitan, right? Now, how was that? That came from the waswas of shaitan. Like, shaitan has the power of waswas. And if we believe the waswas, we're going to slip. So if you believe that there is something not good enough, here's how shaitan's going to come at you, sisters. Self-doubt. Underpinning everything that we talked about here in Ramadan. Well, there's still the waswas of the jinns. It's only the big shaitans that are locked up. So even in Ramadan, you're still going to struggle. And some of it comes from ourselves because we start to believe it, and then we tell ourselves, "Hey, you know what? You're right. You're a failure. Look at me. I was thinking about the socks. I'm proving to myself." So yes, the seed may come from shaitan, but if we run with that, if we take that doubt and we say, "Yes, it's true," and we find proof for it, then actually it's coming from ourselves. That yes, I believe that about myself. Like, look at this, sisters. Allah made you the authority on this earth. Allah made you out of all of the different creations, out of the jinns and the angels. He made you, like, He chose you to be amongst the best of creation. Because why? You can choose to listen to the self-doubt, or you can choose to ignore it. You can choose to be overwhelmed, or you could choose to rise above it. How do we do that? Underpinning all three types of problems I mentioned in the beginning. Not feeling good enough, because we're comparing ourselves to a standard. Like, almost like there's something missing in me, but that person, they have it, right? Comes from, there's something missing in me. Or where we feel like, our children, are stronger than us, and we're not strong enough to be able to lead them, right? Again, that's coming from, I don't have what I need here to deal with my situation. Or the third type is that we feel like a failure. We tell ourselves we're a failure. We doubt ourselves. We look at our failings. We don't look at our success. All of that is coming from self-doubt. At the bottom, at the core of it, is self-doubt. Like, there's something wrong with me. I don't have what I need. There's something that I am missing. I'm not good enough. Can you see that, my sisters? Can you see that that is underpinning all of it? And here's the gem I want to share with you. And thank you for staying with me all the way to this point. You see, sisters, that feeling of not being good enough, or that feeling that there's something wrong with you or something that's missing, that is your uniqueness. You see, you are different. You are unique. There is no other person in the world that can be like you, that can be you, that can be better at being you than you. No one in the world could be better at being you than you. Just like you couldn't be better at being someone else. So that sister-in-law or that friend or that sister, well, they're going to be the best at being themselves because they are them. And any effort that you make to be like them, you're going to come in second best. So we can never be someone else. But that means that you are unique. That's because you are unique. The very gift that Allah gave you, your uniqueness. We allow self-doubt to make that the problem. Now hear what I'm saying, sisters. You are unique. That is your gift. That is the thing that you have in order to thrive like no one else in this dunya. Your uniqueness. But when we start thinking, oh, I'm different, and that's a problem, that's the moment where your uniqueness becomes no longer is your gift. It becomes your problem. Sisters, there's nothing wrong with your uniqueness. You are going to be different. And there is no normal. There is no one who is normal, who, there's like everyone else is normal and I'm not. Well, that's an illusion that isn't real. Every one of us has those thoughts. Every one of us feels different. But that's the way it should be. See, there was one thing that you can do, my dear sisters, in order to transform this for you. If you're struggling with the comparisons, if you're struggling with the self-doubt, if you're struggling with the stick that you beat yourself with, there's one simple thing you can do so that you can start to become the leader of your flock. You can just simply accept yourself for who you are. Right now, for who you are. You can do that by just making a choice. And accepting yourself for who you are, that means letting go of the shame that you carry about what you've done or what you're not. If you have made mistakes, sisters, then like Adam alayhi salam, turn back to Allah in repentance, and Allah is perpetually forgiving. He will forgive you. And at that moment, you let go of the shame. Letting go of the shame now means you can actually accept yourself for who you are. Yes, you're going to want to improve. Yes, you're going to want to better yourself. But how can you do that from a place of, I'm not good enough, I don't have what I need, I'm never going to get there? How can any of us improve from that place? That's the problem for all of us when we start trying to develop ourselves personally, but really from a place of, well, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm always going to fail. I always get things wrong. Things never go right for me. How can any of us improve from that place? Because you failed before you started. And that's why we procrastinate and waste our time on our phones and do things that we don't need to be doing and do things that make us feel good rather than focusing on what we need to do. Because really deep down, we've already failed in our minds. Because we're different and we've somehow made that difference a problem. Your uniqueness is what is your greatest gift. When I finally accepted myself for who I was, and that was a huge journey because I started from a place of I hated myself. I remember once saying that and my husband looking at me like really shocked. Like, why would you hate yourself? I didn't understand it back then. But now I understand it's because I was looking at everything that I wasn't and everyone who I was not like and everything that I did wrong. Why would I like that? But that was never real. None of that was real. And the moment that I was able to see that, I made a choice to let it go. I can't be like that person and I don't want to be. In fact, I have my own gifts. Allah would not have been unjust to me. I have my own gifts to share to the world, as you have. And that world may be just your children. That's huge. Don't underestimate that. You know, you have a gift to share with your family, sisters. Your uniqueness, who you are, who Allah created you to be. And as long as you're beating yourself up, you won't find that gift. As long as you're shaming yourself, you'll never feel like a leader. But if you're able to, and you make a decision to today, to seek repentance for the mistakes you've made, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you a clean slate, wipe it away, and now move on knowing that it's been wiped away. Because Allah promises that if we are sincere, He will wipe it, wipe our slate clean. So let go of the shame. Let go of the stick that you beat yourself up with. And make a decision right now to accept yourself for who you are. Because if you don't, my dear sisters, you will never be able to thrive. You will never be able to lead. Because you'll always be stuck in who you're not, rather than seeing who you are. Now, I hope that this has resonated with you, sisters. I hope that this empowers you. I hope that you can finally let go of the stick that you beat yourself with. And you're able to just accept yourself for who Allah created you to be. You see, Allah created you to be perfectly imperfect. So you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be the standard, but you will always improve. But improvement has to come from a place where you accept who you are now. Shaitan will continuously, he is your enemy, he will continuously keep scaring you with poverty and loss and overwhelm and everything that you fear. You fear what will happen. You fear failure with your children. You fear that your children will not grow up as Muslims, you know, in the way that you want them to. He will continuously try to disconnect you from Allah with the aim to make you disobey Allah. That's his constant goal. How is he going to do that? With the waswas, self-doubt and shame. So you can either succumb to that, believe him, or you can ignore it and remind yourself that Allah made you a khulafa, amongst the khulafa. He made you a leader. He made you shepherd of your flock. You can do this, and he has given you what you need. But it has to come from a place of acceptance. First, accept yourself. This is the biggest mistake we make in personal development. We try and get to somewhere else without accepting where we are here first. It's like trying to put in on your sat nav where you want to get to, but without putting in your location now. And so you continuously get lost because actually you don't know where you're going. And when you are feeling like the leader, your children will naturally follow that energy and they will come under your lead. There's many things that change, but that is the starting point. If you want to bring change in your home and your life and your family, start with accepting yourself for who you are. Start with seeking forgiveness and letting go of the shame. Start with recognizing that you have what you need and you can do this. And from there, you will see your struggles start to melt away because you will be different and your children will follow lead. And I pray that this has been helpful for you all, sisters. I thank you for staying with me till the end. I'll end it here, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. But if any of you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to do so. Tawfiq, sisters. What did you take, sisters? What is it that has struck you from today's session? What did you hear? What is it you're taking away? So before you go, let's grab the knowledge. Let's do something with it. So would you mind all sharing what for you will you take away? Acceptance, Sister Farhia says. Okay, sister, how do you find that? Are you able, how does that feel to you? If I say to you, accept yourself, what do you feel? Do you feel a resistance? Do you feel like a relief? What's the feeling that comes? Sister Swada says, we're all unique and need to accept ourselves. Yeah. Okay, so you feel resistance. Sister Aisha says, I can do this, I'm good enough. Of course you are. Alhamdulillah. Perfectly imperfect. Alhamdulillah. With that resistance, sister, that's just because you don't believe it. So sister who said she feels resistant to accepting herself, it's because you're trying to do something but you don't quite believe it. Do it anyway. That's just because you've been so used to listening to the waswas of shaitan that you believed him. But you know where he wants to take you. You know where he's leading you. So don't allow him to take away and snatch from you your gift of uniqueness. You're different, and that is your greatest gift. That's why we're not meant to be like anyone else. We're not meant to be like anyone else. We can't be. But your gift is when you embrace yourself. Your gift is your uniqueness. That's your strength. If you feel that you're not strong enough in life, embrace your uniqueness and you will find your strength. And here's one more point, actually, that you've always been made to feel inadequate. Yes, and that would have come from people, that would have come from waswas, but it does not make it true. And this is not what Allah says you are. Allah says He has made you to be an authority on this earth. He has made the earth for you. He has made the earth for you to take from it what you need so you can succeed. He has elevated your status amongst all of creation. How then can you be inadequate? And here's something that, to think about, sisters, is you cannot flourish when you are in the past and beating yourself up from, what's happened. You cannot flourish from that point. Like it shouldn't have been like this. It shouldn't have been like this. It should have been. You can't flourish from there because you can't do anything about it. That immediately gets you stuck because you can't go back and change it. And if you're looking at the future and thinking, well, I can't get there. Well, actually, how do you know? And where is it you want to get to? If it's perfection, then you're already stuck. But if it's to be the best of you, the best you can be, that is easy. Like I remember saying to my children when they had exams, and I think we should use this for ourselves. And I would say to them, look, to me, it doesn't matter if you come out top of the class or if you get, all A's. To me, what matters is that you tried your best. You gave it your best. If you can come home and say you gave it your best, then that is enough for me. Because that's all any one of us can do. But when we get caught in all of the issues that we, and all of the standards, then we're not giving ourselves the best. You've got to grab yourself where you are now and be the best from there, not from some imaginary place. That's why I kept using the word imaginary. Imaginary standard, imaginary stick, imaginary power, right? You can't go anywhere from imaginary. What's real is who you are now as Allah made you. Allah made you precious. Allah gave you an immense status. And if we listen to the waswas, we will not believe it and we will fail. And we'll cause our own failure because we'll listen to it and we'll give up before we've even tried. So I hope that this has helped, sisters. You know, instead of listening to the waswas, instead of trying to be like someone you're not, instead of going back and trying to fix the past, accept, embrace, and love who Allah created you to be right now. Take ownership of your life. Start with yourself before you start with your children. Take ownership. Grab the opportunities that Allah gives you before you and be the best you can be from a good place, not from a place of lacking. Okay, I thank you all, my dear sisters, for your questions and for your comments, and I hope that this has helped you. If you want to make yourself stronger, accept yourself. And if you don't accept yourself, what you do is you weaken yourself. And I really pray that you can take a moment after this session before you leave and go downstairs and join the family to take a moment to be with your Lord and accept yourself. Let it go, sisters. Let the pressure go. Let the standard go. Put down the stick. Don't try and be anything else than you're not. And see the beautiful creation of Allah that He created in you and the power He gave you to lead, and that He has honored you. So let's stop dishonoring ourselves. Take a moment and go and be your best, because that's who you really are. I'm glad that you needed to hear this, sisters. We'll end it there. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'll end the session, inshallah.